From the studios of WFAN and simulcast across the country via Fox Sports 1, this is Mike Saw and Francesa on the Fan on this Tuesday, April 7th. Coming to you from what is a chilly, rainy New York today, not like yesterday's opening day. And as we explore later on today the seismic shift in the baseball gods and in the trends of baseball in the city after just one game, which is utterly ridiculous, but that's the way what you're going to hear. But it was a bad day for the Yanks and a good day for the Mets. The Mets have had many on opening day. We'll get to all that. We'll get the Dukes win last night in the championship game in a minute. We'll announce the Fantasy Phenom 5 winner at 3 o'clock today. So those interested in that comes up your way at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I got to start with one thing. Now, I usually don't comment on things that are written about me on the show because, number one, why draw attention to stuff that is usually utterly ridiculous and is just somebody's lame opinion and based a lot of times just in jealousy or nothing else. But there were reports yesterday, and I gather the Post is the one I know about. I don't know about anyone else who did it, but I know the Post did it. They reported with a picture of me that I actually went to the game with Alex Rodriguez's family yesterday and sat in A-Rod's box at the game. Now, you would think, although I don't know why they would break a trend now, they might have either checked or even had the photographer who was about 10 feet away from me when he was snapping pictures could have asked me if those were A-Rod seats I was sitting in. Because I could have told him very nicely that, no, they weren't. Number one, I went to the game with a friend of mine who owns those seats. Number two, I didn't even know those people when they sat down next to me. I had never met them before. They did turn out to be, I don't know if they were all relatives or some friends and relatives of A-Rod's, but some of A-Rod's family was sitting next to me yesterday at the game. I was sitting down the third baseline right past the visiting dugout. Friends of mine, a friend of mine, Lee Einslider, who's been a friend of mine for a long time, guy I met through FAN because he's one of the guys who runs Sidney Frank Importers. They brought Grey Goose through the years before they sold to Bacardi for a fortune. And they spent a lot of money on our program and on FAN at the time. And that's when I get to know them. We've remained friends ever since they sold Grey Goose. Sidney Frank has since passed away, but Lee's still with the company. And through the years, Sidney Frank has owned a luxury box at the stadium, but they have since downgraded to where they just own seats along the third baseline in the front row. So Lee and I are good friends. You know, we spend time together in Saratoga every year. His box is near mine in Saratoga, and we kind of sit around and talk during the summer days. Also, we actually own a horse together. We have a 2-year-old this year named Jordy, named after Jordy Nelson, who is a Claiborne Farm colt that we co-own that is trained by Bill Mott. So we're actually in the horse racing business together. All of this I only bring up because he invited me to the game a couple days ago. I went to the game. I had never sat in those seats before because, like I said, he'd always had a luxury box up down the first baseline, which he just traded in and got these seats down the third baseline. I had never used those seats before. I'd never sat in those seats before. I used to have my own seats, which I gave away 2 years ago, which I didn't renew after I had season tickets for years, right behind the plate. So I had my own seats. Now, went to the game, was sitting there, and the guys who came in next to me, they knew me, I didn't know them. We wound up chatting. They wound up being, I don't know what exactly, they didn't explain, guy didn't explain his relationship to A-Rod, but obviously they were there as A-Rod supporters and relatives, although I'm not sure which ones were friends and which ones were relatives. I didn't, do a census. There were 4 guys sitting there, very nice, very cordial. They knew me, obviously, because they're very attuned to everything that's been going on with A-Rod. But I had never met them before yesterday. I didn't go to the game with them. I hadn't made plans to go to the game with them. Like I said, I had never met them before they sat down yesterday. I don't even know their names. I was never even formally introduced. I do know they were related to A-Rod. They told me they were. So snapping away pictures, telling the world, which the Post did, that I went with A-Rod's family to the game and sat in A-Rod's seats. No and no. There was no coordination. I did not know them before yesterday, and I did not sit in A-Rod seats. So it's amazing. You would think all you would have to do, even if you didn't want to, as a reporter, take the couple of minutes because you're just used to somewhat. You grew up watching guys do sloppy work. You do the same sloppy work that you didn't take the time to make a phone call to find out if it was true. But you would have thought you could at least have, in your abject laziness, asked the photographer to ask me. He was 10 feet away from me. Now, I'm used to the guys snapping my pictures when I go to the game, so it's not a big deal. It's not like I'm not used to them doing it. So the point is, all you have to do is ask. I would have told you. Lee would have told you. Lee was sitting to my left. And he had brought a couple of guys who are in the same business, big guys who have their own, businesses in the same business that he's in, which is importing. His big product now, obviously, is George Clooney and Randy Gerber's product, the Casamiga tequila, which is doing great, which, they do some stuff with us now, too. So I'm involved with that. So that's their, thing they're doing great right now. Sidney Frank's is an enormous business for the Sidney Frank importers. Has been forever. And they've had tickets forever. So that's whose seats I was sitting in yesterday. So the whole big splash, and last night me getting phone calls about it, and then seeing, people, now what happens now is people email you stories about you. Like when someone sees a story about you, then they know, if they know you and they know your email address, they email you the story. So I started getting these stories and these pictures sent to me as I was driving home last night. And I'm like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is more ridiculous. So no, and no. Sorry to burst your bubble, but none of it was true. So, sorry. Didn't go to the game with A-Rod's family. Didn't know A-Rod's family. And didn't sit in A-Rod's seats. So I'm glad. I hope we all cleared all that up right now. But it was a nice sunny day, and they were very good seats, and the Yankees were awful. That was the bottom line. So that's the end of that tale. Now, to the championship game last night.